All right, welcome to month number 2. We roll into month number 2 with a full head of steam. The Jeff Dubay Show, live from Devil's Advocate Bar, downtown Minneapolis. I like to tell people that I'm street. I got street cred. And I do, but it just happens to be Sesame Street. And Sesame Street has a little bit that goes, one of these things is not like the others. One of these things just doesn't belong. That's kind of what we're playing here today with a four-man panel. A four-man panel of 4 people who have all been employed by Harvard, one of which still is. I mean,
I haven't checked. Well, I haven't checked today.
We think you are. Jim Souhan to my right, to my left, Jason McGovern, formerly of Mischke fame, and then Ross Brendel is at far left. I don't know what that sound effect, man. Are you a little gassy, Ross?
I don't know. I thought that was maybe some nice intro.
Ross,
not me.
For people who don't, I think people know for the most part who Jim Souhan is, and nobody really cares.
I'm trying to change that.
Well, really, you got to get underground.
Fly under the radar like me, Jim.
I'm going to move to Iceland.
I want that's my family's heritage. I'm Icelandic. But Ross is basically, if I was going to explain Ross to people, and I've been trying to for the last few days because people have been asking me who the hell's Ross because they see the tweets, and I've been describing him as like the most enthusiastic, optimistic, Opie-like character in Twin City Sports Radio. And now you're not on Twin City Sports Radio. Now you're at the Christian station, right?
Christian, conservative, and business talk.
Oh, really?
Don't leave them all
that
out.
mix?
That's a good
mix.
yeah.
Of course, he could be a meth dealer and still be the most Opie-like character in Twin Cities Radio.
When I was working, the Judd Dubay Show last year, I come in one day, and Harrigan or somebody was off. So you were doing the updates, and it's like you're so happy to do an update. Hey, I'm Ross Brendel.
Well, how could you not have been at the time? The Wild looked like they were going to roll to a Stanley Cup.
Well, this wasn't this weekend. This was a year ago.
At that time, they did too.
But the sky could be falling, and Ross would be.
All smiles.
Yes, he's just. And the way I like to put it is basically one of the opening scenes of the movie Platoon. You got Charlie Sheen, all optimistic and bright-eyed, getting off the helicopter, and you got the grizzled. The people who've been in Twin Cities Radio, we're bloody from the battle, and we're just like limping to the helicopter. And here's Ross jumping off. Hey guys, let's go have a war.
I just mask it well. Do you know, Jeff? This is the 3rd different media medium you and I have appeared together.
Help me out.
Well, we go back to
the fan
yeah. You got Fan Line.
I'm back with Clear Channel again. By the way. We'll get to that momentarily.
Beyond the Pond days. You go way back to that.
Now the second best hockey show in this market, Wild Wednesday.
Yeah, as I've seen.
Yeah,
not only as I've seen, as I've heard.
Have you heard Wild Wednesday?
I have heard the very first last week, right?
Yes.
Was that?
Last week was the first with the complete lineup.
With the new setup.
Yep.
You go back to 1500 ESPN and now here.
Yeah.
We're just piling on.
We are indeed. And
I think it's more like you're stalking him.
Well, how could you not?
Well, speaking of not being able to let go, apparently Clear Channel can't say goodbye to me, Jim. We are not going to be on iHeartRadio, and this starts. What they say, 72 hours. So we're looking at Wednesday. People can start getting our show on iHeartRadio. So that means you can subscribe on iTunes. You can still get it at Spreaker, which is jeffdubay.com. Takes you right there. But iHeartRadio, Jim. Back to the Clear Channel fold.
You're getting the big head again.
Well, it's bound to happen.
Quick.
It's bound to happen, wasn't it?
It was inevitable.
It was. But we can sit in small talk and BS for like the next hour. But there's just too much going on. There's too much going on, and we're gonna try to take this. I guess chronologically is as good as any. Sorry, Jason, didn't mean to smack you there. So let's start with the Gophers. I didn't mean to overstate it, and I might have been enthusiastic, but I don't want to take it back because I still think it's accurate. I think Tracy Claeys might be among the elite defensive minds in all of college football anywhere.
I agree with you.
And I tell you what, the final sequence at the end of the half, we just kept calling timeouts. I said, burn them all. Against whoever's calling the plays on the other side of the field. And then that's all you're doing. You're at that point, you're just pinning your defensive coordinator against their offensive coordinator. With Tracy Claeys, you're going to win that battle.
What I love about Tracy is, what do you see at every level of football that drives you crazy as a fan or an observer? It's the defender
that doesn't look for the
ball. Is
ball.
In the vicinity and doesn't make a play on the ball. Doesn't turn their head in time. Doesn't 50 yards downfield like a glove and then still lets the person catch it.
Yes.
Tracy Claeys has taken a position that, other than Tyrone Carter, has been traditionally weak for this program.
The secondary is phenomenal right now.
And everybody in that secondary makes plays on the ball.
Well, what the Gophers have, too, that they have not had in my lifetime is athletes on defense.
Yeah.
They run. They do. I'm so used to, the big Midwestern plotting kid, the other run. Not to bring race into this, Mike Morales, but in all honesty, I've seen the Anthony Burks and the Mike Moraleses of the world go and be decent football players. but not athletic enough to compete against big-time guys. And we've got linemen who can run 4.6, or 4.7. I mean, it's a different mix. It's a different thing than we're used to seeing.
And they tackle too. If you go back to
racing right off the top. I heard it's going to. I'm going to get fired by Clear Channel.
It's easy if you
almost
just
got on iHeartRadio.
If you quickly segue to tackling, people forget about that comment. If you go back to year one when this staff first got here, and you look at the very beginning of the year, they played well against USC, and I think everybody thought, wow, we might win 6, 7, 8 games. Then they took a massive step back. But towards the end of the year, the running back might be 5, 6 yards downfield before he finally gets hit, but what happened? He was tackled right away.
Right.
The simple things that typically Gopher football and Gopher defense has never done, it's so refreshing to see, and maybe it shouldn't be refreshing to sitting here talking about tackling, but the fact that they do that, that's half the battle, especially in college football. If you can tackle guys right away, you can stay in games, and they do that much better.
You've got to go all the way back to that Kill debut against USC. And take it up to modern day with what we've seen on the other side of the equation. I think it's just quite clear that Lane Kiffin teams don't blow anybody out. I mean, seriously, I don't care how good they are. They play close games. Alabama's in close games every week.
I got a story to tell you.
Yeah.
So I covered Monty Kiffin when he was a linebackers coach here.
Is this the bill? Second.
And I wasn't actually intentionally passing the bill. I'll do that later.
And I haven't finished ordering yet.
Yes.
Well, sorry, Ross. But anyway,
he's high maintenance. We all know that. So I covered Monty as a linebackers coach with the Vikings, right?
Yeah.
And I covered Monty when this team had a great staff, but did not perform very well. The year that Jerry Burns. So Monty
was Carroll on that staff?
He was like 89 or 88.
Okay.
So I missed Pete Carroll on the staff, but they had a great staff.
They had enough egos. They were fine.
Anyway, so I got along really well with Monty. Became pretty tight with him. He took me out to lunch after the season to thank me for not ripping him all the time. It was back the very informal atmosphere of the former Viking hierarchy. And so Monty and I stayed in touch through the years. Always got along great. He always returned my phone calls. Always gave me a lot of great insight. So one day I decide, and this is a few years ago, one day I decide when Lane is getting ripped at USC, you know what, I'm going to see what Monty has to say. I called up Monty. I think he was with Tampa Bay at that point. And, we shut the bowl for a little while and finally said, listen, Monty, the reason I'm calling is I wanted to ask you about Lane. Because you've always been just incredibly down to earth, incredibly innovative. I'm just wondering, what do you think when you see Lane kind of say the kind of things he says and gets in trouble for him? And Monty, who'd been my buddy for 20 years or whatever, goes, Jim, I got to go. Hung up the phone and has not spoken to me since.
Oh, man. Wow, that's harsh. Was this before or after his stint on that staff?
On which staff?
With Lane's.
This was before.
Okay, so he kind of went there to try to save him.
Yes.
To try to save him before it got too ugly, too fast. And I mean, watching Alabama this year, they don't blow anybody out. They escape on a week-by-week basis if they're fortunate enough to. But back on point, do you think Tracy Claeys is going to have an opportunity next year? I can't imagine he won't. How can he not?
Yeah, he will get coaching offers.
Not just because of his defensive coordinator prowess, but also the fact that he was so fantastic in the interim role.
He did a great job as the interim guy. He will get job offers. The question is, where's the bar for him?
Yeah.
Does he want to be a head coach, which sometimes requires desperation and taking over a bad program and hoping he can turn it around?
Yeah.
Or will he have patience and say, I got a good deal here, I'm going to wait until I have an ideal situation? I mean, the easy thing to say is Tracy Claeys taking over Kansas. That's the easy one. Kansas is a terrible program.
Yep.
But it doesn't have to be. It has had some spikes where they've won, just like they've been kind of like Minnesota. They rise up every once in a while. In fact, some of their peaks have been higher than Minnesota's peaks.
Sure.
So,
and he would not be the fattest coach in program history because they just had,
that'd be an awesome. Yeah, everybody,
what was the fat
Tracy
guy's
Claeys can go to Kansas and be the skinny guy. Why wouldn't you take that job?
What was the fat coach name? Why can't I think of it?
Charlie Weiss.
No.
Mangino?
Mangino.
Mangino.
From Mangino to Weiss to Clay. It's almost like the before to after, like incrementally, like that they put it away.
He could do Slim Fast ads.
It's perfect. I mean, they like him. They like him stout in Kansas.
20 years from now, they might have Lane Kiffin.
Well,
just keep going down.
He'd keep going down too, from Alabama to Kansas. But
what does an assistant coach for the Gophers make?
Oh, I think I don't know it off the top of my head. It's public record because this is a public university, so we could find out.
Yeah.
I want to say like 500,000, 600,000.
Well,
they
goes
just got
to Kansas
increases,
or something.
too.
What was he going to get?
Oh, he's
$3 million, $2 million.
Yeah, you could probably at Kansas before you're proven. I would guess you'd get $1 million a year or so.
Okay, so it's not. I mean, that's still double, but
It's pretty good. And Kansas, basically, nothing costs anything. I mean,
Yeah.
it ain't the Twin City. I mean, Twin Cities is not New York. And tell you what, Kansas ain't
It's not the Twin
Minneapolis.
it is tough to pick the right job though, because I mean, yeah, they have had some success there. Mangino, whatever. I get them all mixed up. He had a nice little run there. But in the Big 12.
And Glenn Mason had a nice run there.
Yeah,
he had them at the apex.
He did. But in the Big 12, especially now with a team like TCU in that mix, I mean, college football is becoming, I don't want to say it's more haves and have-nots, because it's actually more balanced than they used to be. But there are certain programs that just are going to have ceilings. Like, I don't think Tennessee's a good job anymore. The SEC's a great conference. I don't think Tennessee's a good job because they're too far north to recruit the kids you got to recruit.
I disagree. If Baylor can win, if teams in Mississippi can win.
Well, but Mississippi's where the talent is. The Gulf Coast is where the talent is.
That's true. But really, Baylor.
Baylor's
my
tough.
mother
That's
went
tough
to
call.
Baylor.
Right.
Waco is a hellhole.
Bob Yates went to TCU. I don't know why I said
and
that.
yet the university survived.
Yes. But I'm sure he's making a handsome
If you can win at Baylor, it proves that if you have the coach who can scheme and recruit for that scheme, you can win anywhere.
Yeah,
Baylor is nowhere.
That's true. Well, Waco? Where is Waco in Texas?
Waco is like an hour and a half south of Dallas.
And then Lubbock is where Texas Tech is. Where's
and
Lubbock?
That's way
that's
out.
The home of Buddy Holly.
That's in West Texas, which is there's much less in Texas Tech than there is at Waco.
I tell you what.
I mean, you don't want to go to out.
But I said Texas A&M is going to become the premier football program in that state because for the first time in the history of football in Texas, which is quite a history, kids can stay home and play in the SEC. And that's proven to be quite a chip. I mean, they are significantly. Now I do believe that Charlie Strong will do well, but right now A&M is well ahead of them.
Oh, they are. They absolutely are. And but to me, that more proves my point. At least I'm going to pretend it does. That if you have the right coach, you can win anywhere. Texas A&M was not that great, and then all of a sudden they hire Sumlin, and they're in great shape. Yeah, Baylor hires Riles, and all of a sudden they're in great shape.
Well, are they great because they hired Sumlin or because they moved to the SEC?
They're great because they hired Sumlin.
I have to say this. I thought Missouri was insane to go to the SEC.
Exactly.
But they've held their own. They've more than held their own.
Missouri traditionally could not recruit any place other than the middle of Missouri. They lost when they went west. They lost when they went east. And Gary Pinkel shows up, and all of a sudden they get these spectacular quarterbacks, spectacular wide receivers, athletes on defense, and all of a sudden they're winning games in the SEC when that program had been down for a long time. If you get the right coach, you can win anywhere.
Somehow lost to Indiana, which I still can't wrap my mind around.
I can't figure it out either.
It's bizarre. But back to the Gophers. They stand to be. I mean, they're 4-1 now. I'd be surprised if they don't see 6-1 with Purdue and Illinois. Yes, Rob.
5-1.
5-1. Oh, they're 5-1.
Yeah, don't leave that out.
Wait a second. So they'll be 7-1 before Iowa. I thought they had to beat Iowa to get to 7-1.
We're going for bowl
I think Iowa would
eligibility
make
on
them
Saturday.
8-1, but I will look it up while we're talking.
I got to believe we all here agree they'll beat Purdue and Illinois. That they should.
Yep.
The end of the season, if I'm not mistaken, goes Illinois, Ohio State, Nebraska, Wisconsin. That's a bear. I mean, that's
so. Here you
at
go.
Least by Big Ten standards, that's a bear.
They are 5-1. They got Purdue at home, at Illinois, home against Iowa, and then Ohio State, Nebraska, Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's a tough 4-game stretch.
It is a tough 4-game stretch.
I mean, not to get too
it's
far
a tough
ahead of
4-game stretch, but it's not as tough as we thought it was going to be.
That's true.
And it's manageable.
Wisconsin cannot throw the football. Wisconsin can't throw the
football. Nebraska, they beat the crap out of them last year.
They did.
The last 3 quarters.
Weird.
Ohio State is not as good as we thought they'd be. Iowa is competitive, but doesn't really scare you.
Is Nebraska the only game? That's the only one for me that I look at and say I find it really win that game. Ohio State.
Toughest.
Ohio State, you say maybe because it's at home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wisconsin can't throw the ball against air right now. I mean, like an 11-on-0 drill, they'd throw plenty of incompletions. I mean, at some point, you got to be able to throw the football.
Where was the Nebraska game last year?
The Nebraska game is here.
That was here last year.
Yeah, it was here last year. It's there this year.
Yeah. So how do you? Okay, let's cut right to the chase. How do they do those? If we give them 2 wins up to those last 4, so they go in 8-1. How do they do in those last 4? Big Ten championship game on the line. Does he get into that last stretch?
I like him at 9-3. For the longest time at the beginning of this year, I went with 8-4 because I wasn't convinced with how they would play at Michigan. But that Michigan win to me is the wild card. Now, obviously, at the beginning of the year, when you're saying 8-4, I don't think anybody could have predicted that Michigan would be this bad.
They're terrible.
I think we all knew they'd be down, but they're dysfunctional.
And by the way,
that offense is embarrassingly bad.
I know people want to be patient with things. If I'm Michigan's AD, Hoke is out the door. I don't even think twice about it.
He's incompetent.
He's an idiot.
You don't need
and he abuses players.
Yeah,
he's
incompetent.
a terrible coach, and he abuses.
And you know what?
players.
I said that when they were actually winning. Remember that when they killed.
They should have never fired Rich Rodriguez. I'm telling you that right now.
Rich Rodriguez.
He can coach.
And that shows you the arrogance of Michigan.
Yes.
Because they didn't fire Rich Rodriguez because he didn't know how to coach. They fired him because he didn't kiss up to the Michigan traditions.
And yes, exactly. He was a spread read option guy. And he
but
didn't
even
give a
more
shit
so,
about the college, high school coaches.
Even more so,
there.
yeah, he
And
didn't kiss up to the high school.
You guys can swear, by the way.
He didn't kiss up to the high school coaches.
Yep.
He didn't do all the little things that you're supposed to do to kiss up the.
But that's why they're not like Mason here
alumni.
either. But of course, he's
exactly.
Minnesota.
Right.
It's not exactly
Good point.
the same deal. But I mean, that's Mason to do. He came in and did things his way too. But if it's Minnesota, the traditions aren't quite what they are in Michigan. At least not recently.
How lucky is Minnesota that Brady Hoke said no about 4 years ago?
Well.
I mean, that's scary if you think about him coming up here.
Yeah, but I mean, Jerry Kill he was fourth on the list, right? Fourth or fifth. I mean,
or 18th,
maybe even
like
further
that.
down than that.
I mean, a lot of things had to go right for us to wind up with the right guy. And I think Jim and I have been misunderstood and misquoted on this many times. We like Jerry Kill. We think Jerry Kill can coach.
Yeah.
But a year ago, I still get tweets saying, well, you assholes wanted to fire him. I never wanted to fire him. I just said if he can't be healthy,
if he can't be on the
sideline,
field.
And here's the thing. I mean, I've talked to multiple major influential boosters over there who said, yeah, Jerry can't keep going like this. He's got to be healthy to stay on the field. Jerry himself has been quoted on the record and has told me, yeah, I know I can't keep coaching if I can't stay on the field. And the university, when it gave him the raise, also put in a clause saying you've got to be able to stay healthy and stay on the field.
Yep.
It's obvious that you have to stay healthy to do that job.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do.
And
I'm glad he has.
Yes, he's
and he looks great, by the way.
Yeah, he does.
He looks really healthy.
Yeah,
even up close, his skin is clear. He looks more fit. He looks more energetic.
Is it just the medications he's on, or what has he changed?
I think he's changed everything. I think he's changed his diet. I think he's, Well,
the guy in Grand Rapids has done a lot for him.
Yeah, but part of it, too, is diet, exercise, and sleep. You got to give yourself a chance. And those
When
things
head coaches don't sleep a whole lot.
No, but you have to. Especially in his condition, you have to.
Yeah. When I say Grand Rapids, I mean the doctor in Grand Rapids, Michigan, who he credited for saving his life or his career or something.
I think Jerry's pretty much said so. You mentioned the diet, the exercise, the sleep, but more so than ever, he's relying on assistants to get stuff done. And I've always said
he's got a great staff.
That's what a head coach should do. That's why you bring these guys in, so you don't have to do everything.
Right.
And I think that's right now it's been the key to success. You mentioned where would this season take them? I got a hard time. If you're 9-3, they can't get picked over by every bowl, and I believe
they got to play January 1st this year. They've got to.
There's new stipulations in place to guard against that too. I believe that started this year.
It can't be a joke. I mean,
I think they finish 9-3 and go to a New Year's Day bowl.
So that would put them in Tampa or Orlando.
Yeah,
you think? Yeah, that's
Orlando seems like a logical place.
It's a good step. It's a good step.
Just avoid Houston. It's the house of horrors.
What are they going to have to do to get into the Big Ten championship game? Because Nebraska has one loss, Wisconsin has one loss. So I mean, they could get down to some. Is it tiebreakers or is it BCS standing?
Well,
it's a really goofy system.
I don't know. We're going to have to do research on this.
In either one of your lifetimes, because I think you're just 1 or 2 years older than me.
So
okay, so 3 years. 3 years.
You're 43?
When have we been this late in the season?
I'm 98. It's either me or Sid. One of us is 98, but neither of us can remember which.
When have we been this late in the season and you've heard this sentence? The Gophers control their own destiny to play in the Big Ten championship. Now, granted, the game hasn't lasted forever.
Well, 2004, when they played Michigan on a Friday night, they were controlling their own destiny for the Big
Ten
title.
But probably not since then.
But how about that? And I know it's early. You've beaten Northwestern at home. You went on the road and beat a down Michigan team. But
they're not bad.
Fitzgerald's a hell of a coach.
Boy, and that amazes me. That guy could get a really good job one of these days. But he's a Northwestern guy and might just stay there. But
that team also lost 2 non-conference games that are hard to explain.
Yeah,
well,
I'm not
last
as
year's hard
as
to
you guys
explain.
Are. I think he's a slightly above average college coach.
Really? I just remember spending 30 years realizing that Northwestern was a joke. I mean, a joke, a laughing stock.
But Gary Barnett,
yes,
he did very well, and he cheated, but a lot of these guys cheat.
But
so
he cheated everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the traveling roads.
Most of them did. He just cheated stupidly in the way that you get caught.
So the Gophers, we talk about the staff that's been together, all this stuff about Tracy Claeys. Does Lon Grover get a little bit of a pass? I mean, I know the running game is dynamic. Cobb is very good. The passing game is middle of the road. The last 3 weeks, I thought, or last 2 games, they had a bye in the middle there. The last 2 games, I would take that from the offense. A good running game, although Cobb, it was an easy sled for him. He got about 3.5 yards to carry the other day. But it's still, just a sufficient passing game and a running game. But I mean, this offense does not light it up. This offense is serviceable at best. I think it's. I don't think it's anything special.
Well,
And it's been in place for 4 years. I mean, at some point.
The thing is that blocking, the things we've talked about, blocking, tackling, defensive coaching, good recruiting, and by good recruiting I mean recruiting people who will play well in this scheme, not the best athletes, but people who will play well here. Mm-hmm. All those things can get you to what? About 8 wins.
Yeah.
To get to 9, 10, 11, now you're talking about having to add a passing game, and they have not proven they can do that. Maybe they can, but they have not proven they can do that yet.
The other thing the other thing that bothers me too about what we've seen in recent years is 2 god-awful bowl losses to bad football teams.
Yep.
I mean, those are bad football teams. People fight me all the time. Texas Tech done. Texas Tech was dog shit.
They were terrible.
They could not defend it. They were small. They were slow.
And Syracuse was a lousy team.
Yes, those are bad. I mean, you got to rise up and win. I know it's not a Rose Bowl. I know you're not playing for a championship. But you got to rise up and act like you care for one of those games one of these times.
Those, to me, are about the only 2 things that are really on Jerry Keel's record that look bad. And especially last year. At least, Texas Tech's a serviceable program. They should have won that game. They had a chance to win that game and didn't.
A chance. They had it. It was put away.
What bugged me about last year is, what did you hear when they wound up at the Houston Bowl? We're okay with going back, not the end of the world. We're on a mission. We want to go back there and make amends for last year. And then what happened? The first half of the game reeked of everything they said, but the opposite. Right. They weren't happy to be there.
Well,
they didn't look prepared for the game.
Philip Nelson happened too. Thank God he left the program when what a piece of crap. What an absolute garbage quarterback and a garbage human being.
Yeah, it turns out not to be the best person either.
Yeah. Hey, Isaac Costa just started following me on Twitter. Isaac, I hope you're listening. I told him to give me a call. Seriously, just to shoot the shit.
I've always thought about this with the coaching, the Gopher coaching tree, and I think you guys will know far more. You know more than I'll ever know on this. But what jumps out to me is, I always said this: what would happen on either end of the spectrum? What if the offense continues to struggle a few years from now? What happens if Jerry Keel's forced to maybe look at making a change for an offensive coordinator? What happens if it's this year or 2 years from now, Tracy Claeys does get another job? What happens to the coaching tree when Tracy Claeys says, oh, Jerry, by the way, let's just say it's Kansas. I'm going to Kansas. And, oh, by the way, I'm going to try and take 5 or 6 of the guys on your current staff. These guys have been together forever.
That's the thing. The loyalty that they've had, I don't know if they'd rate his staff. Do you think they would?
My guess is that Tracy Claeys would not.
Yeah.
Now listen, Tracy Claeys might have one of these guys who's really tight with, and Jerry might acknowledge, hey, you should go with Tracy, but I don't see him taking half the
especially
staff.
if it's like a secondary coach who's got a shot to be a D coordinator.
Right.
That kind of a thing.
And that's typically the way these guys do things. If you can leave for a promotion, more power to you.
Yep. Hey, this is the Jeff Dubay Show. We're coming live from Devil's Advocate, the place where we've been from day one. This is the start. This is day one of month 2.
Cool bar, by the way. I like this place.
Isn't it awesome? The way I describe
it reminds me of London. It really does.
It reminds me of Whitey's.
Pub,
Whitey's
too.
I mean, see, like when I first got here.
Whitey's was in London. It reminds me of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I got it first.
Good, I got my first spit take from Jason McGovern. Yes.
Almost ruined the board right there.
The way I described it, I said, this is what a bar looks like. A long, narrow building, with a long, narrow hall, where you sit at a straight bar and stare at a brick wall and drink beer.
Brick wall, yes.
With TVs.
You have to have a real wooden bar.
A real wooden bar.
And you have to have real brick to stare at while you drink.
Yes, it cannot be some bizarre trapezoidal, hexagonal, goofy-looking bar.
And another key here.
With music going.
Another key.
In the background.
Enough windows that you know what time of day it is,
yes.
but not so many windows that you can't ignore them.
Well, yes, exactly. I mean, look at the wait staff here. Just old school, like grunge-looking guys. Not all gelled up people who look like the guy from Sprockets on Saturday Night Live. You know what I'm talking about? This is not a club. This is a bar with 40 craft beers and a fantastic and very unique menu. They refer to the menu here as Atlantic Fare. Basically, it is. Don't come in here looking for a light meal. All right, you're gonna get meat. You're gonna get potatoes. You're gonna get things in the form of balls because they've got a little bit of a fetish, and we've teased them about that from time to time. But they got chicken balls. They got shrimp balls.
Jason, I think you can take everything you just said about the bar and make it a promo for this show.
Oh yeah, I definitely can cut that out.
The food is fantastic. I mean, I had poutine.
Very good.
Well, poutine to me still sounds a little.
It's off-putting, isn't it?
It sounds like slang for like going and getting some. Like, did you get any poutine this weekend, man? I mean, that's what it sounds like to me.
Seeing the poutine I took home the other night.
Seriously,
damn.
But what it is, it's just like world-class cheese fries. I mean, it's cheese fries with sausage and gravy. It's phenomenal. But again, you got a burger with blue cheese, pretty solid.
Very good.
I have had it. I had the Moby Dick twice, which is a giant fish sandwich. It is not made of whale. It's just a fish sandwich. And the shrimp poor boy. And I do call it a poor boy, not a po' boy, because I am from Minnesota. I refuse to say po' boy.
You're from Minnesota. You should say poor boy.
You also
Or
can't.
just call it the puffy.
Those buffalo balls are fantastic.
They're called chicken balls. That's
But
what
I think they call them buffalo balls,
they
don't
call-
they?
If anything,
You're
they're
going
buffalo
to come in
chicken
here
balls. They're
and
both
tell me
right.
what they call.
It's
Come
your
on.
show, man.
They're chicken balls. They call it chicken balls, but they are their version of boneless buffalo wings. They're just chicken meatballs.
But better.
And I mean, when I first started here, I asked Eric Forsberg, the owner. I said, "Well, what are you known for?" And he goes, "Meatballs." And I just sat back and I thought, tell me a restaurant who's known for their meatballs. It's not an Italian joint. This is not an old school Italian restaurant. I said, you're known for meatballs? And I've always, and not just because I've been here, but for years and years and years, I've always really had a subtle appreciation for just the genius that is the meatball, because it is not just the name, it's a description. I mean, it's exactly what it is. It's a ball of meat, pretending to be nothing more, nothing less. We don't even ask what the meat is. In general, and here but I mean, in general, when you go to the store and buy meatballs, it is a meatball. It is. I mean, it is exactly what it says it is, and you don't care what kind of meat it is.
Thank you, Jerry Seinfeld.
The meatball is it's just a phenomenal. I just love it.
What
is the deal
with meatball?
There you go.
But although I do have to admit, this past summer, due to my lack of mobility, increasing lack of mobility, I swore off around food because I spill a lot and I'm not going to chase it. So grapes. It happened because I found her basically.
See, I would look at it the other way. I would look at that as your workout routine.
Right.
I mean,
burn a couple calories looking for your food.
I found like a raisin in my room that I know was a grape at one point. But when something drops and it rolls away, I'm just not going to go get it.
And the thought bubble on Jeff's head was free raisin.
Seriously, I'm not going to chase my food. That's just all there is to it. I mean, it's dead. I buy my food dead. I'm not a hunter or a gatherer. I buy it dead and prepared for a reason, and I'm not chasing it ever. So anyway, that's the bottom line. We're at Devil's Advocate.
Tell them the Dubay special quick, too.
Is it still going? It's not Halloween yet, is it? What is the date, by the way?
It's the 13th.
Oh, so it's
13th. Yeah, let's say
dyslexic. It's
13th.
dyslexic Halloween.
Right.
The Dubay special is a Widowmaker, which is a fantastic. You've had it.
Yep.
It's an IPA.
I'm
not
still
an EPA.
drinking it. I keep drinking it. If they got it, I'm drinking it.
They sold out of it. That's how popular the special was. Just hugely popular.
Is Widowmaker a brand or a formula?
I believe it is the name of a specific brew from a place. I don't think it's the name of a
they
brewery.
they have a brewery in Colorado that brews for them.
Oh, did you have one? Would you have?
I
Ross?
did, yeah. We might have to get
Jim
as good as it gets. I had it here a few months ago.
I've had one.
Yeah, and they told me when I came in tonight that they just recently got it back. So
yeah,
good,
because we sold
good
out
sign
of it.
if anything sells out. That's a good sign. That's probably pretty
well,
good.
and the special that we're referring to has been wildly popular. You come in here and you check in with social media, which I don't really know how you do that. But I see them. I see Facebook posts all the time that say, "Hey, I'm at so and so," and I just always see those. I say, "I don't give a fuck where you are," but tell them. But anyway,
but if you check in at Devil's Advocate, we do give a fuck.
Well, yeah,
where you
but I
are.
mean, come in here and annoy everybody by telling us where you are, but and then show it to the bartender that you have done so, and you will get $1 off your beer, off your Widowmaker.
Damn.
And if it's happy hour, you get $2 off your Widowmaker. So it's a hell of a special, and it was popular enough to sell out for a period of time.
Most places I go, I mention your name, they charge me double.
Yeah,
so
or
this
kick
is quite
you
a
out.
deal.
No, they show you the door.
Kick you out, yeah.
Just flat out show you the door in a hurry. So that's this is month number 2 at Devil's Advocate. So they re-upped. So that tells you it's going fairly well. So we're happy to be here. We have a great time. Did you guys enjoy? Did you eat, Ross? You did.
I did eat. Yeah.
You
the
had
chicken
balls and your impressions.
Very good. Second time I've had them.
Oh, okay. So
it passed the
So
test.
you've been here?
Yes, I've been here before. Typically, here's what happens with me. I go anywhere. Doesn't matter where it is. If I have something one time and it's good, I almost never change.
You are that, though.
Yeah,
You're that type.
I'm that guy. Mainly because why would I pay for something that I might not like if I know
called
that
broadening
I
your
like,
horizons.
I'll get, and I'll love it. But here, I've had the dry rub wings before. Those are good. And Jim's Burger looked good, so
It was good.
I suppose I probably do need to mix it up a bit.
How could taking deep fried shrimp and making a sandwich out of them be bad? I mean, would it have been so hard for you to have a poor boy?
It probably
A
would have
deep fried
been.
shrimp sandwich? Are you kidding
I'm
me?
not a huge seafood guy. I don't eat stuff
okay.
that swims in its own poop.
Well, no, the shrimp they just keep the poop right along their back and along that spine.
That's even worse.
That's not a vein. That's
Ugh.
an intestine. You know that, right?
Yes.
Oh, just
That's
the
an
thought.
intestine. That's
Ugh.
shrimp poop. Yeah.
Ugh.
Jim, your review?
I had the Tino's burger, I believe.
That's correct.
Very
Blue
good. I
cheese.
love blue cheese on burgers, so when I saw that, I got that.
It doesn't look like you finished.
And
your
I
fries.
had some chicken balls, and my apologies to the chicken that lost them. They were very
yes.
good.
I mean,
You felt awkward eating them, didn't you?
Yeah, a little uncomfortable. But I mean, I had the poutine, so I felt like I was eating. Never mind. We'll move on.
I didn't have the poor boy because I've been in New Orleans recently, so I try not to eat anything like what you can get in New Orleans after I leave New Orleans.
That makes perfect sense because I'm sure you were just knee deep in jambalaya for a Well, we're up Gopher Talk and make a little lane change here. It is the Jeff Dubay podcast. Ross Brendel, Jim Souhan are here, as Jason Montgomery is each and every week. We're going to have to wait, reflect on the wait staff and get a couple of refills on our guest beers here. Hey, Jay. It's not Jay.
No rush. No rush. You keep calling him Jay, though.
No, it is Jay. No, Jay's over there.
It is fun watching you yell for people and they just keep walking. This is how I treated you 10 years ago at the fan. Oh, Jeff wants something again.
It's the story of my life. I'm used to it.
Jay will come by.
This is Jay right here. Jay, refills for my people. Oh, sorry. Fresh horses. Fresh horses for my men, please. I just hit Jay. Anyway, back to sports. Now that we have done a ton of promotional announcements, the Wild have played 2 games.
Might not give up a goal.
Well, in all honesty, this team if they're loaded up front, and loaded is not overstating it. Did you see the shift? Let's go back to Thursday night, the season opener. The shift, I believe, I want to say it was in the second period, but I actually think it might have been late in the first, where our fourth line destroyed them. Our fourth line is a line. In the end, okay, let's just give some people a little traditional background on some of these NHL line combinations. Because typically you got 2 lines that you'd like to think could score. 6 guys who you can put out there against most people and can score some goals.
Or in this case, 5 guys in Koivu.
Oh, okay. Jeez, he's just never going to drop. And then a third line is basically 3 guys who just can go out and play defense. Check your opponent into oblivion. Take another line out. A fourth line is a line you will throw out once or twice a period when your other guys need a blow. When your legs are getting a little weak, you throw a fourth line out there for a shift or 2.
Or when there's 2 seconds left in the game.
Yeah, typically with an enforcer. The Wild's third line is a line that I got to believe they would be comfortable in the final minute of a game, up a goal or down a goal, having that line on the ice. I mean, that is a line. That is not a traditional third line. We're talking about the Howell and Niederreiter group. They can score, they can defend, they can do anything. I mean, they are an all-purpose group. The fourth line has a couple of guys who, I mean, they've got guys who can skate, handle the puck, and do some things offensively. I'm not saying you'd put them out in a 1-goal game, in the final 5 minutes, but they had a shift against Colorado where they cycled, they passed, they skated. How come this is always a half beer? I don't get these little cute little
probably
guys.
10%,
but it looks good though. Anyway, back on point. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
How high class does Jim look, by the way, with that?
With the snotty little glasses that look
it's
like
Courvoisier.
So what are you drinking, by the way?
It is Victory something.
Is it a double IPA or something?
No,
probably?
it's like more of like an amber.
Oh, okay.
Which tastes really good.
Yeah, they've got the 40 craft beers. So don't come in here and order a Mick Golden Light.
No,
I'll
do
kick
not
you
do
in the
that.
shins. I will kick you in the shins if you do that. Come in here and order a Bud Light in front of me, and we're stepping outside. They got 40 craft beers on tap. Come in here and be a beer snob all day long, because that's what the place is for. But anyway, back to my point. I will say this. I think Colorado is a team that is such a perfect matchup for the Wild, because the Wild are faster, they're more skilled, they're harder working, they're grittier. Colorado tried to goon it up with them a little bit Saturday night. I don't think Colorado's got that kind of mentality. I think they might be tougher than the Wild on a given night, but I think if you get Colorado to go out in a game and try to play physical rather than try to skate and be offensive and attack, I think you've taken them out of their game, and you've already beaten them, and that's kind of what happened Saturday. But these were not very competitive games. Saturday was, and when I say that, Saturday's game was fairly evenly played, but when you lose 5-0 and you are outshot 50-2, and you go home 2 days later, you better win, and you better win well. I mean, I think having an evenly played game that you lose by 3 in that second game is a god-awful loss. I really do. 'Cause that's a game where you should come out just spitting fire, and they didn't.
You thought they were going to show up a lot more at home, didn't you? I thought they'd come out with a lot more energy.
Yep. I thought that was going to be a hellfire, just a firestorm for the Wild to step into. And they did play a lot better, and it was a fairly evenly played game. But again, knowing what had just taken place 2 nights earlier, that's not enough. I mean, the Wild are just a lot better than Colorado, and Colorado's a division champ. And I'm going to say right now, the Wild are a lot better than Colorado.
I think the key for the Wild this year, to your point that you just made about going into Colorado and outplaying them again, they're always going to do well at home. Hockey's a weird sport. Being at home shouldn't matter, and it really doesn't for a lot of teams.
It doesn't for some reason.
But for the Wild, it matters a ton. For them, and we've heard Parise, I think Parise mentioned after Game 1, I think he even said, we need to be better on the road. That's exactly what the Wild need to do, and to see that in the first road game of the year, it, to me, is an incredibly good sign, because you need to go, especially in this Western Conference where you can be a good team and miss the playoffs, you need to have the mentality, I hate playing for the tie. I hate playing for the point. But with that said, you also do need to play for the point. You need to get to overtime when you play on the road. Mm-hmm. And for the Wild, that should be the expectation. Losing on the road, it happens. Losing at home happens.
Yeah.
But you should still play every game with the intent of, we need to get a point out of this because we saw what happened last year, the Wild. Playing at home is incredibly important. They need to finish in that upper half. It would be nice if they did. To me, that is the big sign of this year. How do they play on the road? And with the guys that they have, with the leadership that they have and bringing in Vanek. And by the way, anybody who thought his work ethic would be an issue with these guys, that's one of the most idiotic things I've ever heard. You think Parisi and Suter are going to let him take shifts off? And Vanek's just not going to do it.
But Vanek cares. People think he doesn't care. But, I mean, he's been on some shit teams. He's going to care.
Playing on the road for the Wild, that's the big gauge this year. How do they play on the road? Because those points are incredibly important.
What kind of alarms are going off in your head, Jim, if you're a Colorado guy? If you're a member of the media, they're a fan there, and you think, wow, we got our asses kicked, and we didn't come out and give it to them on Saturday. Wouldn't you expect it? Wouldn't you expect to just steamroll a team after that?
I honestly, after watching the game Thursday night, I thought, I don't care what happened last year. The Wild is the better team.
Yeah.
And Colorado had to play poorly for the Wild to dominate as much as they did, but the Wilders didn't give much of a chance. What I like about this team is they have not only transformed the talent level on the team, they've also transformed the way they play. A few years ago, this was a dump and chase team.
Yeah.
This was,
let's grind it out.
Stefan Liu used to have a big role on this team because that was the way they played.
Yeah.
Now, you see, and this is important to me, they play a beautiful form of hockey. They move the puck tape to tape, precise passing.
Mike Yeo deserves credit for this.
Yes, they break out of the zone beautifully. They move the puck offensively beautifully. They dominate, as we saw in the playoffs so often last year, especially during the home games. They dominate puck possession. They're not dumping the puck and hoping they might have a chance to get possession. They keep possession, and to me, that is not only a great way to win, it's a great thing for spectators.
It is, and you know what? People, if you want to talk about the most important moments in postseason history for this team, people go to the Bruno goal and beating Colorado. They'll go to the Niederreiter goal and beating Colorado. The turning point for this franchise was losing to Chicago 2 years ago because Mike Yeo sat down and said, we just spent 5 games. You just spent 5 games chasing the puck. We are not going to play that way anymore. We are going to possess the puck. And that is when they changed their entire philosophy.
Yep, and it's so much better to watch.
And how about him as a coach being smart enough to realize, I probably should change my ways a little bit. That's an incredible growing mark for a coach. And then the other point, too, Suter and Parisi, how fun are they to watch? They both bring something different to the table. But I would argue for me, from a fan's perspective, I guess being a hockey guy, maybe take out the generic fan, the person who just kind of watches to see what happens. For me, loving the sport of hockey, I would argue Suter might be more fun to watch than Parisi. The way he moves the puck, his passing ability is phenomenal.
He's Lidstrom light. He's Nick Lidstrom light.
And how he quarterbacks that power play is just so fun to watch, especially when it's really at its highest level. It's a thing of beauty.
What's remarkable about Parisi is he's not the most skilled player.
No.
He doesn't pick corners.
He outworks people.
He just
smart.
Plays the right way. He goes to the right place, does the right thing all the time. I don't know if there's another player I've seen in the NHL who gets as much out of his ability as Parisi does.
No,
well, he's really rubbed off on the other players too. I mean, if you look at the power play, I don't think I've seen a Wild power play where every single guy is constantly in motion. There's nobody standing around. There's none of that just waiting for the puck. They're always going, and I swear that's a Parisi thing. They've watched how he plays, and they're all emulating him.
Well, I'll tell you this. Speaking of that power play, we were going over some combinations on Wild Wednesday. And by the way, we put together a really good hockey show. Wild Wednesday, you can hear it live every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, or, again, podcast. Listen to it whenever you want to. With Scott Schweitz and Tony Dean. Tony Dean writes for HockeyBuzz.com. And, of course, Jason and myself. And we were talking about some power play combinations because a year ago, they did like most NHL teams on that first unit. You got a really good defenseman to run it on the point, and he's out there with 4 forwards. Pominville went back and played the other point. So we're trying to figure out how they're going to juggle these combinations. I thought Vanek would be a perfect fit for the first unit because he is dynamic in front of the net. And instead of that, they got Spurgeon on the first unit. They had Suter and Spurgeon together, 2 defensemen, and Vanek on the second unit, which caught me a little bit off guard. And we saw just how good Vanek can be in front of the net. I believe on Saturday when he had that between-the-legs redirect.
That tip.
That's what he does. He does better than anybody. But I can't believe he's not on that first unit. And again, Yo likes to juggle. Yeah. Yo likes to mix and match. And he's not going to have the opportunities with his lines to do that. So maybe he will more so on the power play. Maybe that's where he'll get his fix of juggling and have his fun, because the first line's untouchable. The first line cannot be tinkered with right now. The second, third, you can mix and match a little bit. But if he's going to be the wacky, mad chemist, it's going to have to be on the power play.
Now, we're judging them by playing 2 games against Colorado. I don't know if that's good. You talked about the road play and how that's a big deal. This is a team that we had a huge playoff series against last year. You're amped up. Your home game, you're already amped up for the first game of the season. But they are the division champs. But I just don't know if you can really gauge. Well, we're 2 games in. You can't really tell anything yet. But I don't think you can necessarily.
We're the best team in the world. Stop it.
You can't tell how good we're going to be on the road yet by any means because you do not know. Yeah, that's my job. That's what I'm here to do. Everybody settle down.
Voice of reason.
Hey, at least it's not apathy.
Have another Widowmaker, you what's the word, sock?
What are you going to tell me? Next, we don't play till Friday?
You liquor pig.
Yeah, oh, wait.
Hey, well, actually, no, thank you for bringing that up, though, too. So now, after these 2 big games that you've been so amped up for, you go on the road, you come home with a big win, and then you sit on your ass for 5 days. How bad is that for them? Is that a big deal?
No. But I'm not really judging result. I will say that coming out and playing the way they did Thursday night was really impressive.
Sure.
The Saturday game, it didn't make me think that this is the best team in the world, but the style of play is what I'm focusing on. They're going to, they might lose both games next weekend, and that won't change my opinion, which is I love the way they play, and if they keep playing like that, they're going to have a chance.
Yeah, I mean it's a puck possession game. It's a skill game. It's a speed game. And it's also a game that's got to succeed in the corners. And they've got guys who can. I don't think people understand how important it is to possess the puck along the boards. I mean, a guy like Coyle will pin the puck against the boards and keep an eye. You'll see as he's not just up against the boards. He's maintaining control with his skates and looking over his shoulder, waiting for somebody to come free in the cycle. I mean, it's part of that. I mean, it's an offensive attack. Although it looks as benign as it could be, it's a form of offensive attack.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really think this team learned a lot from this. I mean, I think the transformative moment for this team was down the stretch. If you lose, Yo's going to get fired. If you lose, a lot of these guys aren't going to have jobs. If they had not made the playoffs, and that was a real possibility, there would have been a lot of changes in that organization. Craig Leopold was not going to be patient paying what he's paying for salaries. For Yo to have the poise he had while his job was under fire at that point, and for the veteran players to rally the way they did around him, that, to me, is why they're playing so well now.
I've got a ton of respect for him because, Jim, let's face it, he was brought in to coach the team that he had that first year. That was a team that did not have Suter, did not have Precy. It was a young team that was homegrown, and by homegrown, I don't mean Minnesotan. I mean, they were brought up through the system.
It was his team from a few years
prior.
prior.
That is correct. It's who he had coached in Houston. And he was tailor-made to keep that group together and lead that group. A year later, they have a high-priced group with holes. I mean, that's the worst case scenario for a coach like that. He's got the guy in the locker room that's got guys making $90 million contracts and a team that is far from complete, that is going to have problems. And he's got to find a way to get guys like Suter to buy into what he's selling. And that's a tough gig, and I'm surprised to a certain extent he survived it. It says a lot about it.
Well, I think it's the way he's handled tough moments. To me, I still had doubts about him in the playoffs until they lose the controversial game at Colorado. Remember that? They get screwed by a call. Yes. They lose. Their season's in danger. Yo's future might be in danger. And instead of whining, instead of complaining, instead of ripping the refs, instead of ripping his own team, Yo came down there and immediately, and I'm sitting there on the tightest deadline you can imagine, saying, just give me something, right?
And make it quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And he handled himself with such poise at that moment. He said, we're not going to complain about this. We're going to look forward to the next game. To me, that's where this team really grew up. And then they come home and they win because Yo pointed them in the right direction. I think that's why he's still on the job. I think that's why this team's playing well now.
Well, he's not the same coach he was when they hired him. I mean,
no.
He had to grow up. He had to change. And he had to his credit, he did. I mean, he's definitely morphed. I guess it would have been his second year here. So many times in press conferences, I would hear him trying to convince himself that things are okay, and he's just not that guy anymore. And I give him tons of credit for it.
Where's goaltending play into this for you guys? Because for me, when I looked at it, it's an issue, but I feel like it's a little bit media driven. Jim, let me throw that one out there and then backtrack very quickly. To me, it's kind of an issue that I think will work itself out. Look, it's nice to have a dominant goaltender, but the reality is most teams don't, and you can win without a dominant goaltender. If one of those two, and I say Backstrom and Kemper, Briz obviously out of the mix, and Harding, that's another fun story in itself. You'd like to think that between one of those two, one of them can seize that job. And if either one gets hot, and I think they're both capable of doing that, the Wild will be just fine come playoff time. But I will acknowledge on the flip side to that is Backstrom could be injured and maybe Darcy never gets hot. So I certainly understand that.
Backstrom's injured now. They just won't tell you.
But to me, I feel like
injured.
That's a situation that can work yourself out. And if you get to trade deadline and it's not, the Wild have assets. You don't ever really want to give up on your assets, but they do have enough assets to maybe go out and find a different goaltender if need be.
Did Brzgalov take the two-way deal or didn't he? Did we ever find out? Did Brzgalov take the two-way deal or not?
I don't think he did.
Okay.
Either he didn't or he hasn't decided yet. I'm not sure which.
I still believe that at some point they're going to want to bail on one of these guys and bring him back in.
Well, here's the thing. If Kemper plays well, everything falls into place. If Kemper plays well, Backstrom's an ideal backup. You don't have to play him so often he's going to get injured.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. He's not going to cause problems.
That's
he can
true.
play well in short stretches. If Kemper plays well, everything falls into place. If Kemper doesn't play well, then you're either going to have to bank on Backstrom, which is dangerous, or
We don't want to do that.
you're going to have to bring in Brzgalov, which I say is dangerous. I don't care how even though he seems to be a favorite of players and fans, I don't trust the guy.
But not in the playoffs. Yeah.
His personality is as much of as
He's
a player.
a goofball,
Yeah, he's out
which
there.
is kind of fun to be around, but I don't trust
goalie.
it.
I mean-
or you're going to have to trade a good prospect for a goalie, which isn't ideal. If Kemper plays well, then they don't have any problems. If Kemper doesn't play well, they have all kinds of problems.
We are 46 minutes past the hour. It means we got 14 minutes left in the show. You know what? I forgot to fill you in on Grill the Host, but we're probably going to skip it. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to scrap it because it just never really works out well. But I was thinking today was going to be a good spot for it because Jim would.
If anybody could do it, I think Jim could
Let's
really
do it.
pretty well.
Well, Grill the Host, Jim, is where I give the person in the hot seat. We call this the hot seat because it's devil's advocate. See how clever we are that way. But I give the person in
You're
the
a
hot
marketing mind, Jeff.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I hope we're still on the air. We're still on the air?
We're good. We're
okay.
good.
They get 3 interview-style questions, no holds barred, about, whatever, being in a Twins clubhouse for 2 World Series, being in jail for drug possession, being an addict, working with Paul Allen, well, whatever. I mean, I'm not the world's most interesting guy, but I've done a few things that people are curious about. But people misunderstand the bid, or I don't explain it well enough, or they sit in that seat and they ask me like, okay, how do you think the Vikings are going to do this year? That's supposed to be an interview style question.
Well, let's do a test.
Okay.
Let's do one question.
But
and
keep
if
it
works
tasteful.
well,
But keep it tasteful.
well, of course. If it works well, we'll do another. If it
Okay.
doesn't work well, we'll just
Okay.
abandon it. Okay.
That's
correct.
How many times when you were on the air with Paul Allen did you just want to throw up?
I knew he could do this. I knew he'd be better at this.
I love Paul, but I did.
Why?
I did once in a while. I would go to Chet Abbott and say, "How do I work with a guy who points at me and says Yadot and expects me to talk?" Okay, don't do it wrong. I love working with Paul, but when somebody comes out of a commercial break and doesn't want to say anything or doesn't have anything to say and points at you and goes beat, and you got to just go. I mean, I'd say you could have told me 30 seconds ago you were going to beat me, and I would have been ready.
That's
for
a cue, huh?
it. So those are always tough moments for me. I mean, that doesn't mean I love working with them, but those are moments where I'd just be like deer in the headlights. I'm like, oh Jesus, you just said beat. I got to talk now.
All right, question 2 and Grill the Host. Give me your favorite Twin who was in that clubhouse who was not a star. Give me kind of a role player you just loved.
Carl Willis, and it's
Yeah,
I could say
that's
it
a good
quick
one.
and fun and easy. I don't even have to think twice about it. But as good a guy as I've ever met, and number one, he was damn good. I
Yeah,
mean,
he
he
was.
had a 2 or 3 year run where he was as reliable as a setup guy as there was in the American League. Probably was cheating. I mean, he probably was throwing the neck ball. I mean, they called it the neck ball. He was always out
Yeah.
there doing this. But I mean, the guy was, he's in his early 30s and he hadn't really made it in the big leagues yet. And he got an early call-up in 91. He almost made the team out of spring training. Nobody had even heard of him. And he gets a call-up early because somebody wanted the DL. I don't remember who, Cassian or somebody. And I don't know, I say it like that. I like Larry, too. But Cassian, like I want to beat him up or something.
Larry Cassian did have the worst body of any professional athlete
Well, Tom
I have
Nieto.
ever.
Tom Nieto.
But see, there's a difference. If you're fat, you're just fat. Okay,
Okay.
and you make it. You try to use it for leverage. You try to, maybe help block
Like an
pitches.
offensive lineman, yeah.
Whatever. If you're fat, you're
Sure.
fat. It happens.
Sure.
I think the worst athletic body is what Matt Burke always told me was the skinny fat.
Yeah.
When you're bone thin and you still have
You're
fat
flabby.
hanging off,
Yes,
that's
yes,
bad.
that's Larry Cassian.
That's Larry Cassian.
Yes, I can't believe you remember who he is, let alone what his body was like.
I
It creeps me out a
I
little bit.
covered Larry when I started covering the Twins in 1993.
Oh, stuff I got.
Poutine?
Yeah, schmeck. So anyway, Carl Willis gets called up, and he just gotten called up that day. I was the ball boy in the bullpen. I had been for years because I just like sitting by Stelly. I mean,
of course.
And I like coaching I coached my nephew's baseball team the last 2 years, and I always say this. I think it bugs people, but I tell people it's just the truth. I learned everything I know about baseball by keeping my mouth shut and sitting next to people like Rick Stamazing and Tom Kelly.
Yep.
And they go, oh, yeah, you're a Tom Kelly disciple. But I learned everything I know about baseball from Tom Kelly. I'd sit there and...
Now, what would be wrong with being a Tom Kelly disciple?
Well,
anyway?
because I'm not a coach. I was a chalk washer. But I'd go in that room and I'd sit there and listen.
You have ears.
I'd sit there and I'd pretend I'm polishing his shoes, but I'd just sit there and listen.
Yep.
And then the reporters would leave the room and he'd go, Jeffy, you believe the shit they come in here and ask? I would just go like, at first I'd be like, yeah, boy, that was a dumb question. I didn't have a clue what he's talking about. No, that was a dumb question. Because, he could intimidate the hell out of reporters, especially the Sandy Williamses of the world who didn't know dick about baseball. But, by the time I've been there for a couple of years, I'm just like, oh, Jesus, that guy just asked that. He's going to kill him for this. I mean, that's little by little.
You know what the secret was to covering Tom Kelly? Go in, and you can't do this anymore. Rules won't even allow it. I used to get to the ballpark like for a 7 o'clock game, get there about 2 o'clock, go down and ask TK about his dogs. And he'd talk about his dogs for about half an hour, 45 minutes.
His dogs, he means his racing dogs.
Racing dogs. And TK would talk about his dogs for half an hour or so. And then he'd be all loose and relaxed.
Oh, yeah.
And then I just and you had to ask the question right away. The worst thing you could do with TK, or really with the worst interviewing tactic anybody can take with anybody, is asking a question that is trying to prove how much knowledge you have.
Yes.
What you do,
nuts.
especially with somebody like Tom Kelly, is you go, so what do you think of this?
Let them be the smart one.
Yeah.
What do you think of this?
Well, Dark Star would just go in there and drop your impressions. But
yeah, but what do you think of this? What do you think of X? And TK he would give you the best possible answer.
Yeah, and I got a really fun TK story in just a second. But Carl Willis just got called up. It's 1991. I had not. It's April. I had never said a word to this guy. I don't know who he is. And he's sitting next to me in the bullpen for his first game, and the kid comes down. They were always trying to get autographs in the first row there by the bullpen, and finally the kid just goes, "Hey, mister, what's it like to be a big leaguer?" And before he could open his mouth, I looked over my shoulder and said, "Kid, why don't you go find one and ask him?" And Carl's going to go, "Damn, who the hell are you? Who is this guy? Who does he think he is ripping me out?"
Big train.
Oh, yeah. And then from that point on, he and I we were just drinking buddies.
Here's a beauty.
We would go to Winners and just hang out on Seven Corners with the Riegers. And here's another one of my favorite stories, too. It's a very quick one. In 94, Carl Willis gets released. And my phone rings. And I hadn't worked I stopped working for the Twins in 92. I go, Jeffy, they did it. They released me. I got to get out here. So I go down, I pick him up at the Dome. And on my way to the Dome, I grabbed the Dubay minivan so we can get all this crap out of there. On my way to the Dome, I call Herbie. And I said, Herbie, they released Train, and we're going to be at Winners, and he'd love to see that. I mean, Herbie was there. We weren't there for 5 minutes, and Herbeck walked through the door, sat there and drank with him all night long. Two of the classiest guys you'd ever meet in your life. I'll never forget that night. But with TK, best TK moment I've ever had. World Series, Atlanta Braves, 1991. You remember the crazy extra inning game where Aguilera had to hit? Yep. It was quiet in the clubhouse. Were you there?
I was not there.
Okay,
I started covering the team in '93. I was still covering the Vikings that year.
It was a quiet clubhouse. I mean, there was a chance to go up. That would have made it 3-1. I think it was Game 4.
I think so.
I go into TK's office and he's just sitting there and he's in his suit and he's ready to go. Get on the team bus. He's just got his feet up on his desk and he's just shaking his head. But this is '91. I've been there a few years and I've established some trust with him. And he goes, Jeffy, he goes, I've been going over it. Over and over, he goes, I'm going to sleep tonight because there's not a way I could have ever avoided having a pitcher hit. He said, and this is how great managers think. He said, I started going over scenarios like fourth, fifth inning. If I do this, Cox does this. If I go here, Cox will do this. If Cox does this, I got to answer with this. I mean, every move has a tangent, and it goes off in a million directions like this crazy algorithm. And it's like Tom Kelly is the star of Beautiful Mind. He's got these equations going off in his head and lighting up.
Good use of algorithm, by the way.
Thank you very much. And he's just sitting there telling me, my head's spinning at this point. He's just calmly going through, if I would have done this in the 6th, he comes back with this in the 7th, I go up with this guy, and then Bobby Cox comes back, and Bobby does this, Bobby does that, and Bobby does that, I do this. And he goes, I've gone over it. And he says, I knew in the 5th inning, if we got into extra innings, I was going to have a pitcher hit. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I mean,
he's 8 steps ahead of everybody.
I mean, Tom Kelly. I mean, you could say what you want about how he handled players. I mean, he had the closeness with the Herbeck group because he came up through the minors with them, and that maybe he lacked a connection to the younger group when they came up, and maybe he didn't connect with the Torrey Hunter group and the McCavish group the way he could have or should have. But the man is brilliant, and I am not overselling it. Brilliant baseball mind.
Well, I always say the two smartest baseball people I've ever been around, people who could see things that other people can't see are Tom Kelly and Paul Molitor.
Yeah.
TK could sit in the dugout and, as you said, figure out every move that needed to be made 4 innings from that.
And he could read people. He wouldn't.
Yes.
Tom Kelly would not go out to exchange lineups with Bobby Valentine.
No, I know.
It wouldn't had nothing to do with it. Because Bobby's just going to steal the show and make me look like an idiot. Because Bobby would crack some joke or something. He wouldn't go near it. He wouldn't go near home plate for the game with Bobby Valentine.
So TK could see the way a game was developing better than anybody I've ever known, and Paul Molitor can see what's the details of what's happening on the field right now better than anybody.
And you know what? And Molitor is not afraid to piss people off.
No.
When we had him on our show last year, and he was talking about we were talking about Plouffe, and just I didn't expect him to take a shot at Trevor, but I mean
he's honest though.
The theme of what we're talking about was this guy's got to go. I mean, not go away, but I mean he's got to get up and go. He's got to do something.
Or go away.
Well,
I'm okay with that.
I mean,
Whichever
it
comes first.
It was just time to show it or get the hell out. And Molitor goes, yeah, you know what? We got a bunch of guys you better realize the train's coming. He's talking about the prospects.
The prospects.
He said we got some guys up there. They just better realize this train's coming and they're not going to be around.
Yep.
I mean, just no sugarcoat, just no bullshit, just these guys are screwed.
I've had that conversation with Paul, and he's right.
And that's him knowing that he could be up for manager job down the road too, right?
And he's also the guy at the time was the head of the minor leagues. Basically, he'd go down and teach people how to steal bases. I mean, and how to play defense. I mean, he's like the Jerry Kill of baseball. He's not going to tell you how good you're going to be. He's going to go down and make sure you know how to block and tackle. I mean, that's your.
Does he bring us back to the Twins way? I hate even saying that.
No.
Yuck.
Well,
I know.
There
right?
is no Twins way.
No. Every team.
They
wants
love
catch
to
the
think
ball.
there is, though.
Every team wants
No,
to catch it.
honestly,
throw.
I've never heard a Twins employee use the phrase "the Twins way."
Is that a media term then?
Well, no, it's honestly,
Kind of.
it's a phrase that when they were really good, other people in baseball
Well, yeah.
Oh,
would
okay.
talk
like
about.
Guillen, kind of.
You know, yeah,
so many
Ozzie
ways.
Yeah,
Guillen.
yeah.
I've never heard a Twins employee say the Twins way. Never.
Guillen's
It's one of
the
those
biggest
things
Twins
that
pimp
other
ever.
people would say when they were good, and then when they turned bad, people used it against them.
Did anybody ever pimp the Twins more than Ozzie Guillen?
No.
I mean, it's unbelievable. It was like their
Well, he knew
PR
then that
cheerleader.
he'd want this job, so
Would
he was just
you-
kissing up.
I like Ozzie.
I like Ozzie, but he should not be the next manager.
Hell no. I just blew my mind how willing he was to go to the whip. He'd go to the whip in like May. I'm like, dude, what are you going to do in July?
Yep.
You just went to the whip in May.
Well, the thing about Ozzie, and I'll make this brief. The thing about Ozzie is he had a lot of success, but with Ozzie, it's all about Ozzie.
Oh, sure.
Ozzie is an
Sometimes it should be, though.
egomaniac.
Sometimes you want to take the attention.
Sometimes, but he didn't do it for that reason.
No.
There have been managers who've been, I'm going to be the show, so
He loved getting laughs. He
reporters,
loved getting laughs.
so the reporters will not go bother other people. I'm going to
Yeah.
keep them occupied. Ozzie just wanted the attention.
And we've got 2 minutes, so I want to get into just quickly, Jim. Manager is it Molitor or is it, I mean, I do believe a little bit in the Mankiewicz theory in that he's the modern day TK in that he manages tough like that and he's coming up with the guys that he would be managing. So I mean, there's some TK parallels, but I don't think you can pass up on the opportunity to make Paul Molitor your next manager.
This is your only chance to hire Molitor as manager. You'll have other chances to hire Mankiewicz. Make Molitor the manager. Put Mankiewicz on his staff.
That's what I was just going to say. Can you make room for Doug on the staff,
Sure.
or does Doug move up within the organization
Either
to,
way.
to
Does Jake
double
Maurer
A or
get on the
triple A?
staff? Does Jake Maurer make the staff?
Eventually.
That depends. Doesn't Jake play first base?
No, come on, get the Mauers right. Get the Mauers straight.
They like Jake a lot, but he hasn't really been in baseball above the A level. I don't think there's any rush.
Okay. But Mankiewicz you'd like to see on the staff, and Berdansky you'd like to see on the staff?
I'd like to see Berdansky and
What
Mankiewicz
about
on staff. Steinbach, I like, and I think he brings a lot of value. The question is, did he kind of join the anti-Molitor clique on that coaching staff
There was an
and
anti-Molitor
eliminate?
clique?
Yes, there's
Really?
an anti-Molitor clique.
Oh, really? Let me guess. Scotty Elger was.
I don't know. You know,
I don't want to get you name names.
I don't know if I can
I'm
get-
not McCarthy. Don't name names.
well, I don't know if I can accurately name names, or I would. I would just say that
That's why the culture vulture
I would just say
references
that
like that.
there was a lot of there were a lot of people who just said, "I'm Gardy's guy, therefore I can't talk to Paul Molitor," which is a sad way to operate.
That is. I mean, I don't think Molitor. I don't think Gardy would ever take that stance. Would he? Or does he-
Gardy
people get-
seemed very paranoid about Molitor's presence.
Well,
you could see that division
you
just
blame-
watching games. You could see that on TV.
But there's a difference between paranoia and division. Is there not?
I don't think he used Molitor as much as he should have,
Really? Oh, interesting. But,
which is, I think, one of the reasons he got fired.
So do you think he probably liked it better in 13 when Molitor's traveling?
Oh, yeah. He loved that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, well, let's mention it's a positive influence on the guys as they come up.
Yeah.
Jim, can we get you back sometime?
Absolutely.
And we'll continue to buy the beers and the poutine.
That's a good deal.
No, I'm just kidding, Ross. We're starting to book return engagements, and you are also welcome back. And
Jeff, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
I wanted to get you to do an update. Give me a quick, you're gonna jump.
Yeah, give us a sports
Come on,
update.
quick one.
Well, 5:58, 48 degrees in the Twin Cities. There will be no hail this summer in the Twin Cities.
You're always more
Chip
enthusiastic.
hail off to Arizona.
You're more enthusiastic
See,
than that.
I
Come
ca-
on.
I couldn't do that.
But that's how clever he is.
I couldn't do that.
Well, let's talk. We'll put something together.
Yeah, okay. We'll get an
By the
update out of
way,
you next
my compliments on the bumper music.
Thank you.
This is like the greatest bumper song ever.
of all time. It's the only thing I've ever used. I mean, it's front. I don't know. It's the most underused for bumper in the
It
history
is.
of radio. It's just
Either
perfect.
this or Black Crows. You got to go with that.
A little remedy.
Yeah.
Like remedy. I was actually thinking about maybe Can't You Hear Me Knocking too.
That'd be pretty good too.
All right, we're out of here. It's month 2 off and running. Thanks to Jim Souhan, Ross Brendel, Jason McGovern. Doug McCavish can suck it.